Okay, welcome everyone. Oh, paper never fails you. Don't ever forget that. So this panel that's coming up is extremely powerful, especially if you have a brand and you want to be part of the retail space. How do you become relevant? How do you draw attention to someone who may want your brand? And the people who are coming up are experts on that matter. So the name of the panel is Thriving in the Retail Ecosystem, and it's going to be moderated by Ramya Giangola, and the speakers are Ida Peterson, Danielle Licata, Joseph Tang, and Molly Nutter, whom I want to welcome. They're powerhouses. They really are. And just so you know, I'm going to keep you in a little secret. Today is Ramya's birthday. She doesn't know it. We're going to sing happy birthday to her, and we're going to break the ice in that manner. Girls, boy. Okay, take a selfie, take a picture so that I can have one. I don't have like a good picture because I'm always talking and moving around, so Titina, you're in charge. Everybody, and let's tag laugh. Okay, 1, 2, hold on, let me lose it, hold on. Happy birthday to you. Come on, birthday girl. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ramya. Happy birthday to you. Thank you for being here on your birthday. Many blessings. Enjoy the panel, guys. Come up.
Thank you, everyone. Such a special treat to be here with all of you on my birthday. So this is a really fun chat because actually everyone on this stage is a very dear friend of mine, and so hopefully that'll make my nerves a little less nervous than they are. But we're here to talk to you guys about retail, fashion, the ecosystem, and how to navigate everything that's happening right now in the world. I think we're going to start with community and building community, because yesterday we feel like so much of what was discussed on the various panels was about community, building your community, supporting your community, authenticity in your community. So I'm just going to start with that. How important is building your community in terms of, being a retailer? I'll start with you, Molly.
It's so incredibly important, and it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of time. So like any relationship, friendships, it's, you get to know someone, get to know their friends, sort of build a family. It takes patience and time, but it is important in the end. But you can't rush it, you can't fake it. It has to be real.
And Joseph, how do you do that in a department store setting? Like, how do you build community? How do you get people to come into the store and feel like they're part of something bigger than just transacting with product?
Yeah, I think for us, it's not only knowing who your customers are and who your customers' friends are, but it's understanding the cities our stores are in. So we have 7 stores across Canada. We're not a massive department store where we have 35 stores across a country, but it's important for us to stay localized with the different cities that our stores are in, knowing not just what are the fashion items and products that they're going to want, but what are the experiences that we can give to our customers, who are the local businesses that we partner with. Every store in each one of our cities has a localized marketing manager, which works with local charities, local influencers, and I think it's, that brings the community up to create this kind of fulsome network of fashion professionals and individuals and customers for our clients.
You know, Ida, we were speaking last night about how Browns is, the top floor experience that you're offering now to your clients, and how do you think that's helping build community for Browns?
Well, I think, for me, one of the really important things with a community is being, and actually someone said this yesterday, so big shout out to them, because I couldn't agree more, is actually knowing who you are. Because I think if you're not super clear, and that is more important than ever in a time when it's difficult and when maybe retailers are picking up less brands, it's like, what is your USP? Who do you stand up? What do you want to be? And because yes, you can know your client, but if you're not clear what you are, you can start to float out, and you start to panic, and you start to look at everyone else, and that is the worst thing you can do, because you lose a sense of what made you special. So I think knowing that and really doing, and that's the same actually if you trying to approach a retailer, being really clear about what you are, and be really clear about are you a good fit? So I think for us, it's our experience upstairs. I just jumped out of that, but essentially what Browns House, we've been around for 53 years. I'm very humble to walk in some extremely big shoes that I will never be able to fill, because Mrs. B, who started Browns, was an insanely talented pioneer. She essentially told Manuel Blahnik, he used to work in a shop, that he should be a shoe designer, not just a designer. She brought McQueen's first collection when he was just a graduate to the masses of the world. She was the first person in Europe to bring Asian designers over. She brought, she ran into Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren, Studio 54. She was like, hey, let's do some business in Europe. And many, many other things, right? So I could never be that person, but what she was that pioneering. So for us, it's how do we give an experience to the customer that is truly personalized? And I think that's something that's really, not everyone has space for that, but at least making it feel that it's special to you, that you feel that you're not just one of the masses, right? And we were privileged because we have one boutique. We do have online as well. That obviously is actually where the bulk of our business are made, but the heart and soul is in the physical experience. And I think after COVID, really seeing people return to that as well, but you have to give them something that is worth, getting out of bed of, getting away from your iPad. And for us, it's building that store for one. So essentially anyone, you don't have to be a personal shopping client. It is our personal shopping client for. But for us, everyone is welcome. If you want to come and have fun with your friends, we have 4 generations now shopping with us. So it has to be for the woman that, shopped since 1970, and we now have a lift because she can't walk up the stairs anymore. But also for her, daughter's daughter, who's she just wants to come and have fun, and maybe she wants some champagne and she wants all her friends around. But more than anything, it's what is that selection that is truly her? We have around 337 brands at the last count, to be exact, and so there's a lot of choice. But so how do we make that stand out for you in the store? We rotate the selections every 3-4 weeks to give a new experience. But if you come in and those brands are not there, as long as you give a few days notice, it used to be 1 hour, but sadly Brexit kind of put a stop for that. But that's a whole nother conversation. But essentially having that opportunity to be the Ramya store, the Molly store, the Joseph store, the Danielle store, it's truly for you. And then obviously every personal shopper worth their grain or salt their nose to throw in a few extra bits. And the more you kind of interact with us, the more that experience can be personalized as well. And there's always a few bonus bits if you do shop with us regularly, of course, going to fashion shows or going to events, etc. But really, truly, is that just how do you interact in the store and how are you fun and how do you feel that it's for you? So that's how we try to build that community as well.
And it's so interesting with Curio actually, because you are in a hotel, which I say is a different experience than the rest of the people on the stage in their retail spaces. So you're servicing a hotel guest, but you're also servicing the local community and the residential guests that are part of your complex. So how do you build community in a context like that?
So it's very complicated actually for that reason, because we have a lot of transient guests. So I would say it's actually similar in that we're probably all buying overlapping brands, but not considering each other competitors because we're all offering something different and creating our own communities within our own physical locations, and attracting different types of people to those locations. So for us, for the transient clients, we're really trying to have things that are high emotion. You have to feel like you have to leave with it. You don't want to be able to Google it and say, oh, it's at the store that I shop at around the corner, which might be Molly's store, which is great. Then you would want to buy it from Molly because you're loyal to Molly, right? So we're trying to offer something different, which is why Laughs really appeals to us, because it's finding artisanal things and small things to mix in with very well-established brands like Michael Kors collection or Dolce & Gabbana, Sylvia Taurasi, like way bigger brands, but we position them right next to the other brands because we don't do our visual merchandising in the way where we would need to tell people, oh, you're looking for XYZ brand, go there. No one ever comes in asking for a brand where they might in other stores. They're just looking for an experience, so they go through the racks, and it's a different type of shopping experience for that reason. For the locals, I think it's very different. They're looking for their everyday clothes. So for them, we try to actually put that all together so they know within the store where their home is, because the store is 20,000 square feet. So it's like making them a home within a home where they know they can find jeans and T-shirts and things that are more everyday. But yes, it's very similar in that it's offering an experience that creates that community and energy that they know if they come to Miami, they have to visit you.
Well, yeah, I'm actually going to pivot for a second because we had an order, but I think what's really interesting is that on this stage collectively, the retail stores these people, my friends represent, are over 400 years old collectively. By George is celebrating their 45th anniversary this year. Holtz is 185 years old, which is epic. Brown's was started by Mrs. B 53 years ago, and Curio started right before the pandemic in 2019. And so it's kind of like, how do you service that multi-generational customer? You have customers at Brown's who shopped with Mrs. B probably, when she was still on the shop floor, to that woman's great-granddaughter now. And so how do you kind of work with your clients and your customers multi-generationally, and how are you speaking to them? So you connect with them, but yet you're giving them different experiences because obviously they want different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's understanding and knowing how they want to be spoken to. Because I think the amazing thing is that just because you're 94 doesn't mean that you're not really into like social media or WhatsApp or anything else, right? Or just TikTok. Because you're 80, yeah, exactly, TikTok. There's some great TikTokers out there. So it's truly kind of giving a lot of different means of communication. And then obviously for us, especially in the store, it's about having those amazing sales associates. Like I want to give the biggest shout out to the sales associate because they're the ones that also help us fill the gap. Because the reality is, I mean, I love online. Don't get me wrong. I'm a massive like late night shopper. But the reality is like you can run like all the statistics in the world. And before I was at Browns, I was Net-a-Porter. So there's some insane data. I'm a Farfetch like Browns is Farfetch owned, so obviously I have insane data at my hands as well. But you can never fill the gaps, right? So that's the important thing, having those communications with your customers, and that's also where you start to understand what do they want. But I think any smart retailer today makes sure that they have as many different means to communicate that still feels authentic to them. So whether that is like, we have like, a lot of the young students that love like WhatsApp, you just send them pictures when it comes in the shop floor, or like some of my sales associates that like, they like have their own fashion shows and then they send that, and that's what sells it. And other people like hate getting emails, hate getting WhatsApp. It's like a phone call, or we do appros, with some appros is, especially during the pandemic, it was like our lifesaver. Like we didn't have to furlough our staff. They just pivoted from servicing via the store to the client to just servicing from the warehouse straight to the client, which I was very happy about. But then, like some women loves coming inside, some men love coming like inside the store, and other people like, hell no. Like, just send it to me, send it to my country pad. And I think it's also about how they shop in the store. It's like, are there people that want to carry them home because they want that bag and they want the experience? Or do they want it sent to them, Or do they want to even send to, like, their house in another country? This is, like, the one way to get over the Brexit part and still get a VAT refund, by the way, guys. So if you do go to the UK, please come, because there's less people visiting now. And we do want to keep that retail open. There is ways to get a VAT refund. But it's just finding solutions, I think, and really exploring and really going back to that thing, like know your customer like nothing else.
That kind of leads into this discussion about, you're a recurring, consistent, year-on-year, month-on-month shopper, and how you acquire new customers. And so what's the difference in that way? I'd ask you, Joseph. I mean, Holtz has been around for a long time, so there must be lots of
sure.
recurring customers, but then
Yeah.
you're also trying to acquire new customers.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows Canada and knows Holt Renfrew, it's such an institution for fashion and luxury and discovery in Canada. And I think our customer is everywhere from, the preteen girl or the, very mature, established Lady of Madison, but in Canada. But I would say that you kind of mentioned this earlier, it's really ensuring that as a store, we know what our true values are, we know what our mission and what we want to accomplish. And we might talk to a Gen Z, we might talk to a baby boomer, but it's always making sure that we're kind of speaking a language that attaches to our core values and mission. I would say just from personal experience, I grew up shopping at Holt Renfrew with my mom. We would go to the cafe, and I wasn't able to afford anything at the store, but I was able to use the store as a museum to look at the latest runway pieces from McQueen or to get inspired by the visual merchandising. And I think that generational concept is, allowing the store space, it's not always about a transaction. We've been talking a lot about this idea of experience, and it's allowing your store to create memories and share similar values that you have as a customer or as a future customer. And I would say when we try to look for new customers, we never want to alienate the ones that we have, but it's important to move the future forward. So that's why I feel so lucky to work for a company that has invested in myself and my personal career, because I would say I represent a generation of individuals that will become future leaders or future shoppers of luxury. And I think that how you speak that language, how you allow those two different voices to coexist in the retail space is so important today. So you never want to alienate, your base. But one thing I always tell brands, and sometimes I reach out to brands that no one would ever think Holt Renfrew would buy. But it's all about changing perceptions. And I think that, again, you can live cohesively in a space together, but it always has to remain true to what your core values as a company are.
And Molly, we spoke a lot yesterday about, you're in Austin, but you have clients who kind of live all over the country and in other parts of the world, and Austin might be one of their many residences. So how do you meet them where they are? Because they're not always in town or coming into the store, and how do you help them have that experience while not physically being in the space?
So yeah, it's true. I mean, we do, our core customer is a local Austinite, and many of them have been shopping with us for years and years, but Austin is also a crossroads within the United States, and it's become quite popular over the past few years, so we have a lot of people coming to town who have heard of us before. Often there's great power in word of mouth, and some that are told about our store when they check into their hotel, and so we have the opportunity to meet them and establish at least a starting point to a relationship. And then we have a great staff that follows up with people once they come to visit. We're really, in the scheme of things, we're a small store. We have 2 locations in Austin. We don't have a huge marketing budget. Everything is very analog. Our marketing campaigns, our editorial campaigns are quite small. But they do gather a following, so people sort of hear about us, but we don't have the money to invest in huge campaigns. But it is that more organic word of mouth way that people discover us. And I think retail has changed a lot all over the world. In the United States and some of the bigger cities, the stores where customers used to shop and were so loyal no longer exist. They come to Austin, they stumble upon By George, and they're so surprised by this little store that reminds them maybe of some of their favorite stores from New York or Los Angeles that are no longer there. So there's that sense of discovery of finding a cool place to shop. And I know myself as a shopper, when I travel to different cities, the first thing I look for is the small store. I'm not interested in going to the store that maybe, it is in my hometown or in other places I go, but I like to go to the place that is of the place.
Totally.
So for those type of shoppers, they find us, and yeah, it's a great way to start the relationship.
We've been talking about that a lot, like small and mighty versus being part of a big behemoth, and what does that mean? I mean, especially with Curio, because it's 20,000 square feet, as you said, that's not a small store, but it's not, you're able to, and so it's like
The baby.
to be a little bit more scrappy.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes makes you a little bit more powerful because you maybe sometimes feels more authentic in a way.
Yeah, we definitely have the size in terms of scale, but being only 4 years old and going through a pandemic within those 4 years, definitely like every client is a new client. So talking about new and existing or travelers versus locals, like everyone's new to us. And that's part of what I think they like because they're discovering something they get to tell friends. In terms of like multi-generational shopping and all of that, it's a unique situation where people are actually shopping together multi-generationally because they're on vacation together. Husbands and wives are shopping together. So I find that a lot of my friends or a lot of people who are shopping are always hiding things from husbands or others or just, not wanting to shop so much in a public sense. And this is a place where you're having an experience because you're on vacation. So there's a lot of buy that, honey, or will you try something on as well? And you
Charge
don't
it
want
to the room.
Yeah, it feels less transactional, right?
Yeah,
You're not
so it's
your credit card, you're
yeah.
just sending it to a room, right?
exactly like very few husbands will say on their wife I'm not going to try on a polo for you on vacation because you're not going to disappoint, right? So it is a different kind of moment in that sense, and we want to have something for the granddaughter, something for the grandmother, but we want them both to feel welcome at the same time because they're actually shopping potentially in fitting rooms next to each other as opposed to separate times. So not only just having the product, but also just making sure in a store like that, it's able to be navigated in the right way.
Yeah, what a special moment to be able to shop cross-generationally. I think that's great. And I'm sure you all experience that in your stores as well, just because you have so much heritage. You touched on COVID, which is definitely something we want to discuss kind of more broadly, which is we've had a really rough a few years, and how are we navigating these kind of seemingly unending crises? And we know that the world's in a delicate state and it's impacting everyone's business, but how can we offer advice to the brands and the audience, to kind of navigate this complicated world that we're living in now? Molly, do you want to start?
Good question. So it came up yesterday in one of the panel discussions yesterday morning about strategy versus execution. And I think during, let's just say, more stable times, the timeline of that swap between strategy and execution might be a little bit longer. When you're going through times that are either booming or more challenging, that timeline is very short. You have to be very flexible, very agile, and I know that during the pandemic, it was not quite day to day, but week to week. You would get through a week and you would assess what happened the week before, you'd put a new plan in place, you'd get through the week, and you just keep changing. It doesn't really work to put a 6-month strategy in place when you can't predict what's going to be happening from day to day. You do need to keep a long-term vision in place, of course. You need to stay true to what your overall mission is, but you really have to be flexible and agile and reactive. So when you're working with your brands, you need to communicate what's happening in your store, and you need to explain to them what's happening. You need to explain to them what the challenges are. You need to explain to them what your customers are going through and partner with them to come up with a plan that works so that not only so that we're successful, but so the brand can be successful. Because we have a huge responsibility not only to our customer, but at By George, and I'm sure you all feel the same way, we can't carry every brand that's out there. We're small, so we're very selective in who we do carry at the store, and we do pick up a brand. We're committed to making them successful with us, not just accepting the order and then if it doesn't work out, sort of putting it back on the brand. It's like, these are the challenges we're facing, so how do we fix this? So yeah, it has to be just lots of communication, lots of reacting, keeping everyone motivated and excited, because when times are tough, it's still a very exciting time, and you can't lose the passion and the joy for what you do when things get a little tough.
There's a lot of silver linings that came out of COVID, even though it was such a difficult time. We talked about this as well. Being able to connect with brands maybe at a deeper level than in market, because you're running around like a crazy person as opposed to being at home on Zoom. How did you find the experience of picking up new brands or communicating with brands during that time?
Well, I don't have the pleasure of living in New York City, so I can't go to showroom, but I think, everyone all here agrees this is like establishing a relationship and a conversation with new designers or new concepts. I think that, we try to remove the transactional aspect of, buying for myself and the team I work with, because it's about knowing when the right time and the right fit to come into a store is, and I'm just generally speaking here. But it's also about having honest conversations, difficult conversations. We want to partner with you as much as you want to partner with us, and it has to make sense. You have to align with our brand values. We have to make, sometimes I tell a lot of new designers, you're not ready yet for my store. It's, you're too new, you're not going to understand the challenges of working for a bigger corporation, you're not going to understand translation or duties and freight to Canada. So I think it's, I'm always very happy to meet with new designers and give them kind of the 101 of how to buy or be in a store for Canada specifically, because, I think everyone sees the glossy, Holt Renfrew name with like Louis Vuitton and Chanel, and then, you're one out of 500 brands. And how do we tell a brand story? And how do you know when the right time is to, partner with the brand? And I think for a lot of young and emerging designers, it's great to establish relationships with, department stores like myself and boutiques and stores with my colleagues here, and find the one that fits best for you. You may not everyone's going to be your cup of tea. Every store has a different personality, has a different client, has a different perspective of how they want to showcase their point of view, and it's okay if you don't fall into that same kind of path. And start small, test and learn. One thing that I tell a lot of designers when they do come into our store is, how are we partnering together on how we're going to launch, but then what is our 3-season sustain strategy, so that we're going to work together to make sure that once you launch with our store, we have a big event, but we're still going to talk to you and we're still going to speak to your brand in other ways that continue to create the momentum of awareness for the brand in our store.
Yeah, I mean, Ida, I'm curious about that because, exclusivity has always been such a big conversation point in the retail world, and especially with a young brand, I often advise that it's better to go, small and mighty again, like we said. It's not about being in a million stores. It's about finding the right partners who can really invest the time and resources to communicate about your brand and educate the consumer. How important is exclusivity for you guys?
I'm slightly allergic to the word exclusivity, because, which is probably why you asked me this question. But for the reason of protecting the brands, I've seen so many brands that, and I think this is still a big problem, and actually in any education. I don't know what it's like here in the US, but for sure, the schools that I've come to speak to and students in the UK, but also all over Europe, they don't train people how to run a business. They train them to be creative and do magical things, but actually today more than ever, people want to start their own businesses, and knowing just even the language and the terms and what they actually mean for you. I think that goes back to the in the pandemic as well. It's so vitally important to be as cash rich as you can, to protect yourself as much as possible. And I think, when you sign up, sometimes you can be, and you said that, Joseph, it's because I think that great power comes great responsibility, right? It's like Spider-Man.
I am Spider-Man.
Love Spider-Man. But the reality is, it is so much truth in that quote, because as a big retailer, regardless of there is a responsibility, but a lot of people just push for that exclusivity, but you can kill a young brand, and the young brand would be so excited about that big name that they will sign up to anything. I think people are starting to change that as well, but there's been so many ways, 2 years exclusivity, 2 years with one retailer, that no retailer, how much they love the brand, can speak to one brand solely. So I totally, for me, exclusivity is more when you actually are in the partnership and you do something together to really celebrate that, and the brand, the strength of the brand, and you're let's do an exclusive capsule. Looking at you, Les, because we got one of my brands here in the audience, and we've done some magic together. I'm about to do a second collaboration. But it's about actually what works for us. What is that partnership that really feels interesting and exciting, and that is right for your customer, not just like, hey, I want this brand and you're going to be just with me, because you can't hold that. You can't lift a brand. And today, you need to create as much noise as possible. You know, everyone's got like goldfish memories, like 5 seconds, and if you don't talk to it. So if you have one retailer, they will do that big campaign, and you know, but then it's over, right? And if you have one drop a season, which many new brands, rightfully so, have, then you have that. If it's an online retailer, you're like in what's new for 2 weeks, and then you disappear because someone searches for Prada or, you know, Gucci, Bottega, whatever, right? Because they're the bigger guys. So how do you stay relevant? And that's why, you know, creating that connection with a few retailers, like in either concentrate on whatever is best for you, like concentrate on one region. I think there's, you know, some really great examples of that. That is actually competing for the Laughs Prize tomorrow, where they build amazing businesses that concentrated in their countries or in South America. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fantastic. Like, learn and build and be strong, so when you go out, you also have strength. Or, you know, go with those key retailers. You know, what is the specialist store that is amazing and you know is going to support you? What is the amazing department store or boutique? And you're like, you want to work with those because their values align with my values. So I think that's really important as well, because then you have that genuine connection, and you know you can have that communication and transparency throughout the relationship. Because the reality is, and you said it, you know, sadly, no matter how much you love a brand, there is a 3-season rule, you know, which is the traditional way of like that. That's how long you have to make it before someone from finance knock you on the shoulder and go like, sorry guys, it doesn't matter if you love this brand, but if it's not working, then you have to drop it. So, you know, having that partnership in those 3 seasons, and I think today, a lot of the bigger guys, it's even 2 seasons, which puts a lot of pressure on you guys at brands. So in those moments, like, you got to protect yourself. And sometimes I love when a brand goes like, sorry, like, we're not ready, you know, fantastic. You know, like, because sometimes like you might overstretch your production capacity. And that is the worst thing you can do, because if you know, it's like Emperor's New Clothes, right? I've seen so many brands in my 24 years in buying that just shine so bright, and then they don't deliver. Like the spring, summer season, and you get the stock in May. Okay, I have 2 weeks to sell it before markdown. It's like, no matter how magical you are, you're not going to sell, you know, maybe, you know, there's 1 in a million. But the reality is that, you know, give yourself that time. You know, be like the Japanese. They're just like, actually, you know, the spring-summer collection is an autumn-winter collection. And then you have the longest selling window. You know, there's a lot of tips and things that you can do to protect yourself. But more than anything, don't go with one person. Yeah. Like, unless it's your best friend, then fine.
And just on that note, because we've been speaking about how important it is to support designers outside of just the kind of traditional fashion circuit of Paris, Milan, New York, London. I mean, you were mentioning earlier that it's so important for you to bring in brands that your guest, I mean, the hotel guest maybe isn't seeing at Saks or at Neiman's. And how do you balance the two?
So just to kind of put it together with also what you were just saying, it's the brand really has to have multiple parts of their own business to make them successful. So just like you guys who are part of Laughs and you're in the pop-up location, you're seeing wholesalers in the morning, but then you're selling retail all day. That's giving you the flexibility to have, you know, selling at a higher price, making your money back for being here, and it's all about that ecosystem. So my advice first would be to have a very well-rounded ecosystem that you create on your own before going to any of us. That way you also know what works, what doesn't, what's the best seller, what, you know, people's reactions are, also what they gravitate to and why they end up not buying it, because it will be the same thing no matter what store you're in up here. So you should know all of that before ever even entering the second part of it. But I would say for us, we're extremely flexible because of our location, situation, and because we're scrappy and we're owned, you know, privately owned, and we kind of can roll with things. So we've had people drop things off in suitcases as opposed to, you know, bring them in from countries that, you know, might not be able to import or things like that. So we do get scrappy, but we are looking for brands that also want to partner with us. So we have different ways we work with brands, trunk shows, short-term consignments, but we always want to be fair and create partnership, which I think is a keyword that everyone used. For us, it's about having success, and if we have success with a partnership where you guys took a stock position and let us borrow something of yours, we're absolutely going to turn that into a relationship where then we purchase from you. So it's just about having that fair kind of upfront written out agreement that we all are following, where it's like you are giving us something, we're giving you something, and we're all in it together, because again, we don't have some huge marketing budget, and it's not going to be about that. It's really going to be product first. So the person's going to come in and they're going to see your stuff, and if that's what they're selecting, it's because you guys created something amazing that stands out in the crowd. So for us, that's the key. But I would say definitely just making sure for all of you guys who are designers and brand owners that you go through the right steps before you think you're right for Browns or Holt Renfrew or even, By George or us. It's really knowing your brand, because if you don't do enough work on the front end and you don't do enough pop-ups and private things and things with your own private communities, your friends and family, and see how that goes, you don't know enough to even do a pop-up even in a store that allows you to bring their product. You might sell out of the bestseller in 5 seconds and then be left with all the rest because you didn't calibrate properly what is the best, right? So it's really doing all of the work you can privately before you come to us, but then making sure you find the right partner and the right community for your product.
I mean, we always say, like, it's very hard to get a second chance, right?
Yes.
So if you get the opportunity to work with a retailer, such as the people on this stage, it's really important that you're ready to do that, because you only have 1 or 2 seasons, to really prove yourself, 3 at the most. I mean, to me, I think, just to wrap this up, because we've got 2 minutes left, is just about how important community is, how important authenticity is, how important it is to be agile during these crazy times that we live in, how important it is as brands and retailers for us to be in constant communication with each other. Are there any kind of closing thoughts that we want to talk about before we start taking questions?
I think when I reflect on our conversation and when I think about all the stories that I hear when I come to Laughs, it's just keeping that sense of curiosity, always wanting to learn something new. I'm a huge advocate of just not following the traditional path of how to get somewhere or do something. I think there's obviously processes that we all adhere to, but what makes you stand out, what makes you excited. That's why I love coming not just to Laughs, but to exploring other parts. A lot of us are on the same fashion circuit where, I see you like I see you more than my brother. And we see the same things. And I think when you have that vision to say, where is everyone else shopping? Or where do you go to find things? I'll sit in malls. I love sitting at an airport lounge, similar to, your experience as kind of transient consumer. And I think today, you're naive to think, if you're exclusive with one brand, Google it, it'll be everywhere else. So I don't think exclusivity is a word that really has the same power that it used to. And I think it's just important to keep your eyes open, think about your surroundings, and know where you fit best. This is kind of like it's like dating, but in fashion.
I agree with Joseph, too, in terms of knowing your strengths. And as a brand, as a small brand, knowing really what you're great at and focusing on that thing. I think you'll get a lot of feedback, a lot of people giving you their input about whatever it is, a friend, a family, other stores, and you need to distill that information and still bring it back to what you're good at, because it becomes very challenging if you're trying to be many things to many people, and you might lose sight or focus on really building the thing that makes you so strong. And those are the things that stand out to us when we're in market looking for something. So we're good editors, right? We're good at finding the thing and selecting it, but the more you know the strength of your brand and have a clear vision, the more confidence we have that we can go someplace with you.
Yeah, my thing, it's kind of in line with what Joseph said, but it's 100% network. You're already doing a great thing by being here today, because it is so important to be out there. But more than anything, don't be afraid to ask. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you get radio silent or a no, right? But if you don't ask, you don't get. And today, we are stronger together. The more conversations you have, the more open you have, the more you reach out. This woman is the most amazing networker. And she will be like, oh my God, I read this book, this is amazing. And she will reach out to the author, and all of a sudden she's having drinks with them, right? So it's don't ever be afraid. That amazing panel talk yesterday about female leadership, they said it, but I cannot agree more. You just gotta put yourself out there, and it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to take, Yeah, exactly. Like, actually you learn more. I think in my career, I've definitely learned more from some of the mistakes that I made, from like when something goes well. Because when everything goes well, and I think that goes back to, as a final thing for me, like in this time of adversity, it actually, like, take risks, but calculated risks, and ask questions.
No, I think Laughs does a great job of bringing you guys a lot of information that's very like overarching, and then it's for each of you kind of to find the part that really resonated and then continue on that path, because listening to all of the advice and then again trying to be everything to everyone probably won't happen, but picking something that you really learned here and really going after that in a very kind of calculated way, and making sure, you know, you keep pursuing your dream and your vision, but you keep learning and evolving at the same time. And I think that will make you very successful.
Oh yeah, wait, one final thing, because it's really important, because I don't want to like crush dreams in that sense. Like, fashion does actually love a comeback kid. It's hard to come back, but you can. So, you know, like, don't be afraid to fail. Sometimes you need that, and then you emerge from the ashes and you're stronger.
Yeah, and I think ultimately I would just close with, we're stronger together than we are apart. And even here, maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen competing retailers. I mean, luckily we're all in different cities. But, you know, you wouldn't see retailers sitting on a stage together because there was so much kind of animosity. This exclusivity thing was such a big deal in the last 10 years. It's faded away now, and I think we all realize that we're much stronger together and collaborating together on different things. And I'd say that's the big takeaways. Everyone in this community is connected, so it's important that we stick together. I think now we're ready for questions.
I think they're bringing a microphone
I'm so
to
happy
you.
to see you.
Wait, can someone bring him a microphone, please?
Someone's going to bring you a microphone so we can hear you. Sorry.
You sound like you have a lovely voice, but it's a big, big space.
And working with them for so many years, and this maybe is more of just a compliment versus a question, but these are two people that I've worked with since I have a brand called ATM, and we launched 11 years ago with Molly at Barney's. And from that day one, I always remember Ramya coming to the showroom and sort of pushing to, which I'm not sure which department store it was at that time, but pushing to make sure that, you know, those buyers, those people would see it. Molly being super supportive as a merchant and also being able to come in and really work with the collection to make sure that it did keep its DNA. Super important, and also, not to criticize the current situation, but missing a lot of times right now, I think, because there's so many layers of people that come and go, and you don't get that special attention. And it's kind of, you know, I don't want to say upsetting or sad, but it is a little upsetting and sad, especially when you launch a brand like we did. ATM is basically T-shirts, and that's what we do well. You know, and it was always about the T-shirt and the best T-shirt and the best T-shirt, and how do you get that out there? And we did an exclusive with Barney's, with Mark and Daniela and yourself for 2.5 years. So I will speak to that in the sense that the importance of that was they were able to sort of promote it. And I know you had mentioned the exclusives aren't as important. What? Oh. But I think that, again, the reality of having an exclusive that's promoted so well is still very valid and appreciative. Like, I don't think ATM would have ever gotten its start without Barney's. So I cherish that exclusive. And then you move on and you do different things, and, you know, for good or for bad. But it was those two ladies, and I just want to comment on that, that really were so dedicated, I think, to their jobs, and I'm sure you still are, and super appreciative, on my end at least, of seeing that. A little bit different these days, so it's also nice to hear from Browns and from Holt, and understanding that these guys are are pushing for that, and seeing how that works nowadays, maybe a little different, but super important. And anyway, basically, I just want to say hi to you two.
Hi. I wish you were
So
on the
happy
stage with
to
us,
see you.
actually.
I do live here in Miami these days, but all right,
Next
bye.
time.
We'll talk after. They're going to bring you a mic.
I run a nonprofit brand called Mercado Global, which has been carried by H Shop at Holt Renfrew for many years. And I just wanted to share that our experience has been so amazing. Of all the department stores and retailers we work with, the H Shop team is so wonderful and actively helping us do gifting to influencers and press and marketing around the story behind our brand, which is this amazing, I think, amazing social impact brand that tells a story of master craftsmanship. But it's so different from our experience working with other retailers and department stores where it's such a fight to even get connected to the marketing people and the press team and help them think about how to tell the story. So Belk, Von Maur, our product is sold and it's just sold based on how it looks, but I think people often don't know the story unless they take the time to read the tag. And so I just wanted to ask Joseph, how does H Shop fit into what you were speaking to previously about how Holt Renfrew creates communities and creates experiences, and what's the future of H Shop?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, because H Project is it's a retail concept within our store, led by Alexandra Weston, who's our kind of chief brand officer. And she's been a powerhouse in terms of advocating for sustainability, artisanal craftsmanship, charitable. And it's a shop in our store that doesn't have the same parameters as, the mega brands that we have in our space. And it allows for more of that storytelling, and it allows for really as an incubator for brands that, again, follow the same kind of value and mission that we really adhere to. So I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what your brand name was. Oh, yes. So yeah, we partner with small or local brands or artisanal that have amazing stories, and that kind of, you are so lucky because the team that works on H Project is so integrated in the day-to-day, and they're small businesses, and our buyer, Natalia, is super focused and streamlined on helping smaller brands develop into eventually graduating into the store. I think, H Project used to just be about sustainability, and it's so much more about social impact and change. Alexandra works really closely behind the scenes with also all of our corporate sustainability, and the future of H Project is always going to be there. We always have a spot in our store that helps support these more artisanal, crafted, charitable brands, and the team that you work with is amazing. So we're all very integrated. I work closely with the H Project team on a daily basis as well, so I love hearing that feedback. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jasmine from Vos. It's handmade textile fashion. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom. One question I have is, you're in market, you see a lot, you love it, you enjoy it, but what pushes you over the edge from appreciating something to actually taking the risk and ordering it?
For me, it's always, we're very privileged at Browns that we work with some of the top brands in the world, but the young new designers is the heart and soul, because they're the future of fashion, right? It's great to have the big names, but it really is because we have the best of the best, is to have something that is truly unique. Like, I know it's really hard to say that, and it's never, there's no one formula, but it's to stand out and to not look too much at what other people do, because I think that's when you start diluting yourself. And really, truly, for us, it has to be something that can stand alone and that will catch people's attention, because otherwise they will buy the Brunello or the Prada or whoever else is out there. But our customers love exploring new things, and it doesn't need to be visual. It can be amazing and pared back, but there's something there in the quality. And actually, you spoke about it, and Joseph obviously filled in all of us what age that is, but the storytelling. And I think so many like people that I met yesterday at the pop-up, and I hope to meet more of you today, there's some amazing stories. So that storytelling, get that out there as well. Like get in there with who are you, why are you? Because that is sometimes how you completely fall in love with something. You know, and particularly that's how you make the customer then by extension fall in love with it as well.
Thank you so much.
Hi. Okay, I have a question about, you mentioned about exclusivity, that's no longer an issue. I mean, everybody's working with all the designers. And that means, and also we're consuming fashion so fast, that means that there are so many collections, and ultimately you have to mark down, you have to do sales. So I want to know what's your view or your opinion on sales, and when these sales do happen, some retailers are more aggressive than others, and does that influence you? Do you have to lower prices because someone else lowered prices? So I want to get your view on that.
I'm going to jump in first because I have very strong opinions about this.
Me too.
I think that sale is a necessary part of the business, but I also think it runs the risk of devaluing the product that we're putting into the store and out into the world, because at one moment we're saying this product is well made by these hands and it's luxurious, and then 3 weeks later we're saying, well, actually it's 40% off now. Like we're signaling to our customer that it may not be worth what we were asking our customer to pay for it originally.
Yeah.
And I think as a retailer, we have a responsibility to buy an amount of clothing that will have a healthy sell-through, so we're not left with inventory at the end of the season, which is easier said than done. But being responsible about the size of the orders that you're placing, and also as designers, being responsible about the size of the orders you're accepting, or the production lead time that you know that you can realistically achieve, so that a store has an ample amount of time to actually sell the product. It's all tied together. But I think the promotional activity that takes place before things actually break sale are, I think it's really stealing away from the true value that luxury has. So I like to keep it to a minimum, but I'm also working in it's a small store, I actually have more control over that. We're less vulnerable to the promotional activity that other stores may have, because we curate brands that aren't distributed to a lot of retailers who maybe are more promotional. We find new brands that just don't fall into the normal cadence of markdowns, and some of the established brands we work with are also very strict about when they allow their product to be marked down. So I can stand firm on that. We will mark down fall on January 1st, and we'll mark down spring on July 4th weekend. And a lot of bigger stores don't have the luxury of being able to do that, because they're all competing for bigger dollars and eyes on
I think
product.
just to add to that, I think the smaller stores can be flexible, like Molly's saying. We personally don't do sale all year. So we have one sale, it's an annual sale, and it's an event. So it's more like Barney's used to do with their warehouse sale, where they're taking everything that was left over, they're hiding it, and then it's coming out at one moment, which we always do for charity. So I think it's just being confident enough that, yes, other people might have that product on sale, but if the person really wants it, have them buy it there. And oftentimes they didn't get their size, or they're still looking for it. And we have people who are still looking for that piece 3 months later, or appreciate finding it at a sale event. So I feel like it is harder for larger stores to change their ways, because you have last year's sales that you're trying to anniversary and protocols and all of that. But for smaller stores, I think we're all trying to get away from being part of that constant activity of marking things down and buying more and devaluing people's brands and product.
I mean, I think a sad reality is, though, I think that's why working with specialist stores is an amazing way to sort of start your business. But since the Lehman Brothers crash, the world grew smaller, and in some ways, in a wonderful way, it means that you can sit in a basement, like in the forest, like in the middle of Canada, maybe, or Miami, wherever you are, and create a brand that can become really big, and you don't have to have that more money. But it also means that when the going gets tough, like it's very easy for the customer to look for the best price. And the reality is, and I just, it is not right. I mean, I hate markdown, but we have to engage with markdown because in the end of the day, that is the reality of what's happening in the world today. So it's more, how do you protect yourself? Because the reality is that if you sell to a few retailers, like globally, if they have an online presence in these times, there is going to be promotional activity because they're also fighting for their lives, like in some cases, or they're just trying to chase that end margin. And the reality is like 10% discount, 20% discount is better than 50% discount for you, for your end margin, which is that finance guy sitting at the back of my shoulder. So it's kind of get that early delivery in, like try to like protect yourself that way, but and try to obviously protect yourself as much as you can. But the reality is like it's gonna happen. You're gonna be there. So be open about your feelings about that. Be open about your core programs. Core program is a great way to protect yourself. If you have a core business, then that will roll over, and you're much more protected.
I'm so sorry, but I've been signaled 5 times now that we have to go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.